All right, so we'll start here with question number one. You were a talented football player at Santa Monica High School. I believe you played defensive back for Coach Don Steer there, correct?
That's pretty good, yeah. I don't know where you came up with Don Steer, but yeah.
Yeah, his daughter Sherry is on the Facebook site, and she asked me if he remembers playing football for her dad. So,
Of course I do. I loved her dad.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I'm sure she'd like to hear that. Good stuff. So how did a guy who was a pretty talented football player end up becoming one of the best beach volleyball players and a two-time NCAA champion at UCLA?
Well, let's see. I never played, but I went to Santa Monica High, and in the 10th grade, they had an indoor team. It was just like a recreation thing. There was no league. There was no play. You didn't play other schools really. And that's where I first played volleyball. So we did that. I did that in the 10th and 11th grade. And then in high school, my senior year, I went out for the baseball team. I played basketball. I played basketball. I played football. I never really played baseball. I never played Little League. So the guy asked me to come out and try because I was a pretty good athlete. So I went out for the baseball team, and I ended up starting on the baseball team. And the volleyball coach said you can't do sports, so he said he kicked me off. So anyway, I never played indoor volleyball. That was the only time I'd ever really played. And then in the summer of '69, when I graduated from high school in '69, and a lot of my friends all went to Sorrento Beach. And I lived in Malibu at the time, and I started to go to Sorrento Beach the summer of '69, and it was with Randy Niles, Tom Shamalis, Randy Sieb. We had about 10 guys, and we would go down to this beach, and it was just unbelievable when you went down there. The first time I went down there, there's this wall, and you sat against the wall, and then there was this one court they called A court. And that's where all the best guys played. And then we would play farther up the beach a little bit by the Ivy and hang out there because we were just starting to play. And that's where I saw Hagen and Lang, who were by far the best volleyball players I'd ever seen. And we would play on this other court, and then me, Shamalis, and Niles, and we all started to get a little better. And then we'd watch these guys play, but we wouldn't play with them because they were too good. They would just crush us. So it took a little while. And then in 1970, Greg Lee came down. He was just going to start UCLA. Greg was a phenomenal basketball player. He's two-time City Player of the Year, All-American. And he was going to go to UCLA with Walton. Anyway, Greg, his older brother John Lee, was a volleyball player, so Greg wanted to play volleyball. And Greg got good, super fast. Within a year, Greg was I think he won an Open after, a little over a year. And we were just starting to, that's where we started to play beach volleyball, was down in Sorrento.
That was the place to be, from what I understand.
Oh, it was unbelievable. You would go to the beach. And so what happened was in '69, that summer, then '70, I wanted to play football. And I went to Santa Monica College, and I played defensive back there for 2 years. And I wasn't quite, I was good enough to start at junior college, which was good, but I just didn't have any foot speed. So I started playing beach volleyball during the summer down in Sorrento, and eventually Greg and Shamalis and I would start to get a little better. And then I remember one day me and Shamalis decided, well, we're going to go try to play on A court.
And there was quite a pecking order back then. You didn't.
Oh no, it's a total pecking order. At Sorrento Beach, and the other beaches had the same thing, but at Sorrento there was A court, and you took winners on A court. And you had to win to stay on. And if you lost, you were done for the day, basically, because there would be 8 teams waiting to play. So what you did was you played games on A court, and then that's how you got better. You started to play against the good guys. But the first time we ever went down there, Shamalis and I go over there and play. We play Lang and Von Hagen, and back then, there's a rule, and we were just starting to get, okay. We weren't that good, and we started to play. And the first game, it's like 8-0, and Lang just goes next. And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You guys are done. Get out of here." And I just said, "That's it. I'm not going back over there." And then, so eventually, we got good enough to start dominating on that court. But that's what it started out. When you were not that good, you didn't play on A court until you got good.
So the stories Von Hagen told me about Lang, that when he really wanted to rub it in people's faces and he didn't want to be playing them, he'd say before the match even started, or before the game even started, 8-0, 8-0, and it would really piss people off.
Yeah, and then he'd spin the ball on his finger and look at you and they go, "Next."
Oh man, he was a piece of work, wasn't he?
Oh, Lang was he was the best player I'd ever seen. Lang was good at everything. He was like an incredible digger. He was really good at hitting. He was a really good setter. He was a really good server. And he had the best mental outlook of anybody. He would just wanted to grind you in and beat you. Like, he wanted to beat you 15-0. So if you ever played him in a tournament, you thought about the 15-0 and I can't beat this guy. And that was his thing. He was super intense.
He wasn't there to make friends, is what you're telling me.
No, not at all. He was just ready to beat you up on the court. That was his deal.
Wow.
So eventually what happened was we would play on this other court, and then within about a year and a half, you start to play. We played, Jamal and I won an A tournament one time, and then I was playing with Randy Niles, and I won a AA with Randy Niles in 72, I think. And Greg and Shamalis, I think, won an Open in 72. Greg was unbelievable. Greg got better faster than anybody. He within a year and a half, Greg was like a really good, he was playing in Opens. It took me a couple years before, I don't know how long it took, but once I understood it, then I was really consistent. I knew how to play volleyball. But like, Greg got good really fast. That was just his idea of what was happening. So I would say about 70, by the summer of 72, that's all I wanted to do was go to the beach. And so we would go to the beach from, we'd get down there at 8:30 in the morning and we'd stay till 7 o'clock at night every day. And we would just play games. And that's all we did. We played games. And then you would play on A court, and by 73, 74, what would happen was we were switching. I'd play with Shamalis in a tournament. I won a tournament with Tom, and then I'd play with Greg, and then you'd switch partners around. And then eventually, after about 74, I just started playing with Greg. And you would go to Sorrento. You'd get there at 8, and you'd play 8 games. And you just wouldn't lose. And every day it was like a tournament. You would if I lost, I was so pissed, I would take a run for 45 minutes down the beach because I was so pissed off that I lost.
Yeah, I believe Fred Zulich said Menges was one of those guys who just hated to lose. That you literally couldn't get in his neighborhood for 30 to 45 minutes after he lost a game. It
really affected me. It got me really edgy when I lost. Yes, that's for sure. That was what was going on back, for about 8 years. That's what I did. I worked at night in restaurants and to make money. Nobody had any money back then. You drive in a Volkswagen and my whole life basically revolved around the beach. I went to the beach like 300 days a year. When it was raining, we'd go down into the parking lot and sit in the car and watch the serve. But we were always at the beach all the time, and we'd play 7, 8, 9 games a day. And that's what we did. And then wait for the weekends for tournaments. Back then, there was probably only anywhere from 10 to 12 tournaments a year, but those are the things that you waited for the tournaments, because then you got to compete against guys that you weren't playing during the week. So you'd go to Hermosa and try to beat those guys, then you'd go to State and you'd beat those guys, and then you go to Marine and you just want to crush everybody you played, just to show, to see who the best was.
Was that North Bay and South Bay rivalry pretty significant, like they talk about?
Well, I mean, you always wanted to play. The best guys down there were Schwartz and Gage and Imwally and Jackson and Zulich, Rick Shaw, Steve Sims. Those were all South Bay guys. And you played them at Marine, Rosecrans, Hermosa, Manhattan. And then you'd go to Santa Barbara and you'd play, that's where John Lee was and those guys. And then San Diego had the Featherstones. So it was all, it went all around, and you just wanted to go to those beaches and win.
Sorrento had quite a few characters at that time period, from Von Hagen and Lang and Steno Brunicardi. I've heard the stories about him.
And Wilt was down there one summer he was rehabbing his knee when he was playing. I think it was 73. He was down there all summer, that one summer. And then you had there was Von Hagen, there was Lang, there was Gene Pfluger, Randy Niles, Marlowe, Hanseth. We had a ton of good players, and the games. That's why the games during the week were super intense. I mean, that's why you got better, because you were playing against good guys all the time.
It was like playing a tournament every day there to hold that court, like one great match after another.
Oh, yeah. When Greg and I would play Von Hagen and Chamales, it was just a war during the week. I mean, there was angst going on, big time.
People always talk about Von Hagen having that will to win, like Lang did, and later you did, from what I understand, and having that kind of mental toughness and siding out all day long, and that his speed to cover the court too, where you wouldn't really think it because you'd see this muscle-bound guy, but he could, motor to the back court, the back line, throw up a set or get a ball that you didn't dream possible. Are all those quotes and sayings about him true from what you saw there?
Absolutely. Von Hagen was the first guy that I could tell that really took volleyball seriously to another level. When we first started playing it, for me, it was like it's 70. I started playing like basically the summer of 69, but 70 I was starting to play and try to do good. But it was basically about, having some beers afterwards and going to the parties at the, that's what I looked forward to, was the parties after the tournaments. Saturday night and Sunday night. That's where my head was. Yeah,
I heard you did all right with the ladies.
Back then it was pretty good. Yeah.
Old Ice Eyes or something to that effect.
There was some stuff going on. Yeah, it was pretty good. But Von Hagen took it to another level. He trained. He didn't drink really. He had this big bottle of green tea, and he'd eat raw nuts. And he would that's where I learned how to play volleyball, was from Von Hagen. Von Hagen was all about, it was a different game when we played. It was a bigger court, side-out scoring. A match would last 3 hours. If it was a long match, it would be, almost a 3-hour match. And all you worried about was siding out. And so it was a war of attrition. It was who was in the best shape. Back then, who won tournaments was who was in, you had to be in really good shape. Like when I played with Greg, I got 90% of the serves. So I had to be in really good shape in order to last that long. Because Greg didn't get served at all. They always served me. But Von Hagen was the ultimate of beach volleyball when I first started. He was super strong. He had this will to win, and he just wanted to grind. And it just let's see who can last the longest, and then we'll see who wins.
I think he often mentioned he got that mentality from Coach Wooden, that the team that practices the hardest and is in the best shape, is that he never wanted to go out on the court, just like Coach Wooden would tell him.
And that was Wooden's theory of you do what you're going to practice. You practice, and then you're playing the games. You don't go cross train. You don't go run marathons and all this. If you're going to play basketball, you play basketball. You do basketball drills, and you play basketball. That's why Greg Wooden got on Greg for playing beach volleyball during the summer instead of a lot of basketball. He kind of got on him about that.
Yeah, I heard when he saw Von Hagen, when Von Hagen came around those basketball practices, if Lee or Valet were on the team, Wooden told him to get lost.
Yeah. Because he wanted you just to play basketball. And that's all we did. We just played volleyball. And Von Hagen would play volleyball, then you'd see him down at the water doing jumps, squat jumps, and he was in the best shape of anybody. He could outlast anybody.
Boy, he and Lang must have been a sight to behold then. In hindsight now, that was like...
See, I didn't get to see those guys in the 60s when they were at they were probably, I never saw Selznick really play volleyball. And everything I've ever heard or talked to anybody about, Selznick was probably, one of the best players of all time, as good as Karch, I don't know, Delhauser may be the best player of all time at this point, but we'll see. But I never got to see Selznick in his prime, but I saw Lang kind of at the end, and Lang was the biggest grinder, wanted to kill you when you played. I remember this one tournament, it was at Marine Street, it was like 1970 or something like that. And there was this play, Marine Street had the beach, and then there was a mound of ice plant on the side of a hill, kind of, and they were playing on a court that was probably 30 feet away from the court. Lang dug this ball. Von Hagen ran about a 900 into the ice plant, popped it out of the ice plant, and then Lang cut it for a winner. And I just went, oh my God.
Wow. Really?
Unbelievable. Oh yeah. Lang was probably the best digger I ever saw when I first started to play. He was unbelievable. He could take your best hit and pop it up one-handed.
That's what I've heard, and the people said like his hands were so strong and so quick, and he would just do things that would just defy, everything you thought was possible. Like it was nothing to him.
He knew where guys were kind of going to hit, and he just put his face right in the middle of it, and then just would pop them up off his shoulder, or one hand pop up the hardest hit the guy could hit, and he could pop them up. I always tried to play defense like Lang. That's kind of who I tried to emulate when I played.
From the sounds of it, you came pretty close from what people have said. They put you up there as one of the best diggers.
I was one of the better diggers, I guess. I just learned how to dig. The other thing is, when you used to play back then, the whole thing was about siding out. If you sided out longer and made less mistakes, you were going to win the match. So what you were trying to do was have ball control to put every ball on top of the tape, put the ball down, and then wait for the other team to get like a 5. If somebody got a 5 or 6 foot back set against me, I was going to dig it 90% of the time. I just knew where their ball was going to go. Because the guys you couldn't hit. Now, a guy like Delhauser, I watched that guy, and it's kind of scary. He can hit a 6 foot back set straight down. But, it's a different deal.
Yeah, absolutely. There were some other characters at Sorrento when you were coming up through the ranks there. Do you have a good Steno Brunicardi story that you want to share? I heard he wasn't shy and didn't back down from anyone, from what I've been told.
Oh no, Steno was like he was not a bad volleyball player, but he wasn't that good.
His wife was really good though, right?
Who?
His wife, Jean Brunicardi?
Oh, Jean was really good. Yeah, Jean was one of the better women players for sure.
Okay.
She was one of the top women players. Then we had Bob Vogelsang was one of the biggest characters down there.
Yeah, what was his deal?
Now that guy's a phenomenal athlete. He played for I think he was AAA for over 20 years. And he was a big guy. He was 6'7", basketball player. He played on the Washington, with the team that used to play the Globetrotters. He played for them. He played golf.
The Washington Generals. Wow.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal volleyball player, but he never won tournaments because he always either cramped or just mentally couldn't take it when he got to the final.
Yeah, I don't know. He just, from what I've heard, he was always up to some kind of interesting antic when it came to.
Yes, he was a total character for sure. Absolutely.
I remember asking Pat Powers about Mike Stormn Normand, and he said that when he was a kid growing up in Malibu and he'd come to State Beach, that there was two guys that you didn't mess with. Normand and Steno was the other one. Was that a pretty fair assessment?
That would probably be right there with anybody. Those two guys you wouldn't. Norman was kind of crazy sometimes. When I played at UCLA with him, that guy was a phenomenal jumper. He was a really, really good athlete. In fact, the year we won in '74, he was on that team. We won the NCAAs up at Santa Barbara against UCSB in their gym. We won in the 5th game, came back. We were down 7-1 and won the match. But anyway, afterwards, Norman, they did the all-tournament team, and I was on it. A guy named Bob Leonard was on it from UCLA, Norman, and then they had 3 Santa Barbara guys were on the team, and then the player of the tournament, they say Bob Leonard. Norman was so pissed, he left the gym, got in his VW van and drove home. He didn't come back to celebrate, back to the hotel. He drove back to LA. He was so pissed that he didn't get player of the tournament.
Oh boy. Well, maybe he was afraid he might do something if he stayed there, right? I don't know.
Yeah, so Norman was a phenomenal athlete. In fact, in '74, after that, I wanted to play indoor volleyball on the national team. So we went out, me and Norman and a couple of the UCLA guys. We went to Pepperdine, and they had the tryouts. And so we played, and they had all these different drills. They had a 100-yard dash, throw this, you squat and throw a medicine ball, 20, whatever you can throw it, stand and jump. And Norman's 5'9", and he wins he's better than everybody in every one of those things. He was unbelievable. And then they ended up cutting him and me, and they took a guy named Dave Groot over me, because back then it was it was political on when you who was going to be on the national team. It was kind of a joke. But anyway, I said I'll never play indoor volleyball again, which made me a better. Then I just went to the beach. That was in '74. But Norman was a phenomenal athlete, unbelievable. But man, he could. I would imagine he could kill somebody. Norman, he is a gnarly guy.
Right, he was a Green Beret in Vietnam, correct?
Oh yeah, he's a scary dude, man.
Was he able to keep it under wraps or keep it in check during the practices with Scates and with his teammates? I
remember in one game and I don't remember what match it was, but we were playing in a match, and Scates had to get him out of the huddle. Because he started ramping. You got to move. He had to push him out of the huddle because he was starting to foam.
He was foaming.
Man, he was really good indoors too. He was a really good volleyball player.
I didn't realize. I thought he was closer to 6'1" or 6'2". I didn't realize he was under that 6 foot.
Maybe he's 5'10", but he's not. There's no way he's 6 feet. He's maybe not. I always thought he was like 5'9" or 5'10". I don't think he's much bigger than 5'10".
I remember.
But he could probably jump 40 inches. He had one of the highest jumps I've ever seen. Him and Toshi Toyota.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of him too. He was something else.
Yep.
You won another NCAA title in '71 for Scates, or was that '72?
72. 72.
And was Shamalis on one of those teams with you there?
He was on our '73 team, and we didn't make it.
How is he as an indoor player? Everyone knows out on the beach he was downright frightening.
Tom wasn't quite as good indoors because of the block. He just wasn't quite as good indoors as he was on the beach. Now, when I went to UCLA, I was playing football, and I wanted to play football. I didn't think about playing volleyball really. And I got a scholarship offer to go to UC Santa Barbara to play football in '72, and they canceled the program right after I got the scholarship. So I didn't go there. So Von Hagen talked to Scates and told him, this guy's a really good volleyball player. You should offer him a scholarship to go to UCLA. And I had never really played indoor volleyball since my 10th grade in high school. I didn't really know how to play indoor volleyball. I just played on the beach. And this guy named Ed Machado taught me how to set indoors. And so I ended up starting in '72. I started like half the games in '72. And by '74, I was an All-American. And
they ran a 6-2 then, so you would hit in the front row and set in the back row?
6-0, so you went all the way around. When you were in the back court, you were a setter, and then in the hitter. And that's when I had like a torn rotator cuff, and I wasn't real strong at the net, so sometimes Scates would take me out of the front court and substitute, and then I always play in the back court. But I'd play front court a lot of the times. Yeah, that's when you ran a 6-2, so the setter always came from the back court.
Okay. That time that you played for Scates there, I mean, everyone knows next to, Coach Wooden, he was quite possibly, or Dan Gable, the greatest coach for a sport that sport has ever seen. What did you learn from him as a coach? Anything resonate or stick with you later in life?
The best thing about Scates was, first of all, he always got the best players. Almost all the good players went to UCLA, but Scates was really good at getting the best out of players. And he was super good at game situations of who should be put in, who should be taken out, and he just knew what was going on in games. That's why he kept winning, because he knew when to substitute, who to play, how to play certain teams, who to serve, what to go after, what their weaknesses were, and he was he's just a really good volleyball coach. He knew exactly what to do to win.
You guys did plenty of that during your time there.
Yeah, we were really good, and we should have won. We should have won in '73, but we lost in 5 games to San Diego State to get to the finals, and then they ended up winning the NCAAs that year, '73.
Wasn't Chris Marlowe on that team, the Lions?
Marlowe, and they had Milo Beacons and McFarlane. Yeah, they had a really good team. Randy Stevenson was a really good setter. Yeah, they had a really good team. We were ahead 2-0 in a match, and then they ended up winning the next 3. Which we did to them in the NCAA finals in '72. They had us 2-0, and we came back and won the next 3 to win the championship in '72.